Welcome to episode 100 of the Business English Podcast. We're thrilled to celebrate this monumental milestone with all of you. Over the past 99 episodes, we've journeyed through a vast array of topics designed to elevate your business English skills to new heights. From mastering networking and small talk to delivering compelling presentations, navigating the complexities of meetings, understanding the intricacies of business English grammar, and handling awkward moments with poise, we've covered it all. We've delved into the art of telephone work, persuasion and influence, equipped you with powerful phrases, and provided practical advice to help you excel in every business scenario. Together, we've explored essential strategies for effective communication, crucial for unlocking countless doors in the professional world. Now, through the many messages and feedback we have received from you all, the professionals out there working in the international arena, we have come to understand the impact of this podcast on the non-native business English speaking community, and it has been immeasurable. Your dedication to improving your communication skills has led to remarkable professional achievements. Many of you have reached new heights in your careers, forged stronger relationships, closed important deals, and led with confidence, all through the power of better communication. Today, we're excited to bring you a supercharged mastermind episode where we gather the very best elements from our first 99 episodes. Our goal is to provide you with a comprehensive toolkit of the most valuable lessons and phrases all in one place. This special episode is designed to refresh your knowledge, reinforce your skills, and propel you even further on your professional journey. And so that just leaves me to say a big thank you for being a part of this incredible journey. Your commitment to mastering business English has been truly inspiring, and we are honoured to celebrate this milestone with you. So let's dive in and continue to achieve great things together. Here's to episode 100 and all the very many doors it seeks to open for you. Let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Business English Podcast, helping professionals communicate more effectively, more confidently, and with impact. With your host, Rob, from Energetic English. Let's get down to business. Right, to begin with, we're diving into a vital skill for any business professional: networking and small talk. This is the first of 7 sections, each packed with advanced business English phrases and practical advice. So, networking and small talk. We'll cover how to start conversations, keep them running smoothly, and gracefully exit. I'll introduce each phrase, give you time to repeat it, and then provide a scenario where you can use it effectively. So, starting conversations. First up, we have 2 phrases to help you start a conversation. Phrase 1. What brings you to this event today? Repeat after me. What brings you to this event today? You can use this phrase when you meet someone at a networking event or trade show. It's open-ended, encouraging the other person to share their purpose and goals for attending. For example, imagine you're at a trade show and you see someone standing near a booth you're interested in. Approach them and say, "What brings you to this event today?" This will likely prompt them to share their interests, giving you a natural segue into a deeper conversation. Phrase 2. I couldn't help but notice your badge. What's your area of expertise? Repeat after me. I couldn't help but notice your badge. What's your area of expertise? This phrase is perfect for trade shows where attendees often wear badges with their names and companies. It's a polite and professional way to show interest in the other person's work. For example, if you're at a conference and you see someone with a badge from a company you admire, you can say, I couldn't help but notice your badge. What's your area of expertise? This opens the door for them to discuss their role and interests. Running conversations. Once the conversation is started, keeping it running smoothly is crucial. Here are 2 phrases that can help with that. Phrase 1. That's fascinating. Can you tell me more about? Repeat after me. That's fascinating. Can you tell me more about? Use this phrase to show genuine interest in what the other person is saying. It encourages them to elaborate, making them feel valued and heard. For example, if someone mentions they're working on a new project, respond with, That's fascinating. Can you tell me more about your project? This not only keeps the conversation flowing, but also shows your enthusiasm. Phrase 2. How do you see this industry evolving in the next few years? Repeat after me. How do you see this industry evolving in the next few years? This question invites the other person to share their insights and predictions, often leading to an engaging discussion. For example, during a conversation with a tech professional, you might ask, How do you see this industry evolving in the next few years? This can lead to a deeper conversation about trends and innovations. Leaving conversations. Eventually, you'll need to leave the conversation gracefully. Here are 2 phrases for those moments. Phrase 1. It's been great talking to you. I'll let you get back to the event. Repeat after me. It's been great talking to you. I'll let you get back to the event. This phrase shows appreciation for the conversation and acknowledges that both of you have more to explore at the event. For example, after a fruitful chat, you can say, It's been great talking to you. I'll let you get back to the event. It's a respectful way to end the conversation while keeping the door open for future interactions. Phrase 2. I have a few more people I need to catch up with, but let's connect on LinkedIn. Repeat after me. I have a few more people I need to catch up with, but let's connect on LinkedIn. This phrase provides a reason for leaving and suggests a way to stay in touch, reinforcing the connection you've made. For example, at the end of a conversation, say, I have a few more people I need to catch up with, but let's connect on LinkedIn. It's an effective way to continue the relationship beyond the event. So, to nicely close out this section, remember these key points. Start conversations with open-ended questions. Show genuine interest to keep them running, and exit gracefully while suggesting future connections. Networking and small talk are about making meaningful connections, so use these phrases and advice to navigate your next event with confidence. Stay tuned for our next section on presentations, where we'll cover introductions, transitions, conclusions, and of course, handling Q&A sessions. In this second section, we're focusing on the critical skill of presentations. We'll cover how to introduce your topic, make smooth transitions, conclude effectively, and handle Q&A. Let's dive in. Introductions. Starting with introductions, a strong opening sets the tone for your entire presentation. Phrase 1. Good morning, everyone. Today I'm excited to discuss. Repeat after me. Good morning, everyone. Today I'm excited to discuss. This phrase is ideal for starting a presentation as it greets your audience and sets that essential positive tone. For example, imagine you're presenting a quarterly business review. You might start with, Good morning, everyone. Today I'm excited to discuss our progress over the last quarter and our plans for the future. This immediately engages your audience and outlines what they can expect. Phrase 2. Let's dive right in by looking at. Repeat after me. Let's dive right in by looking at. Use this phrase to transition quickly into the main content, showing that you respect your audience's time. For example, if you're presenting a new marketing strategy, you could say, Let's dive right in by looking at our target market analysis. This signals a focused and efficient presentation style. Transitioning. Smooth transitions help maintain the flow of your presentation and keep your audience engaged. Phrase 1. Now that we've covered the background, let's move on to. Repeat after me. Now that we've covered the background, let's move on to. This phrase is useful for shifting from one section of your presentation to another while keeping the narrative connected. For example, after discussing the history of a project, you might say, "Now that we've covered the background, let's move on to our implementation plan." This helps your audience follow your train of thought. Phrase 2. Next, I'd like to highlight. Repeat after me. Next, I'd like to highlight. Use this phrase to introduce a new topic or section clearly and confidently. For example, in a presentation about a new product, you could say, "Next, I'd like to highlight the key features that set our product apart." This keeps the audience focused and anticipates the next point of discussion. Concluding. A strong conclusion reinforces your key points and leaves a lasting impression. Phrase 1. To wrap up, let's recap the key points. Repeat after me. To wrap up, let's recap the key points. This phrase is great for summarizing your presentation and ensuring your audience remembers the main takeaways. For example, at the end of a financial report presentation, you could say, "To wrap up, let's recap the key points. We've seen a 20% increase in revenue, improved operational efficiency, and strong customer satisfaction scores." This reinforces the main messages of your presentation. Phrase 2. In conclusion, the main takeaway is. Repeat after me. In conclusion, the main takeaway is. Use this phrase to emphasize the most important point you want your audience to remember. For example, if you're concluding a presentation on a new company policy, you might say, "In conclusion, the main takeaway is that this policy will enhance our workplace culture and productivity." This leaves your audience with a clear and memorable message. Handling Q&A. Handling Q&A sessions effectively can boost your credibility and reinforce your message. Phrase 1. That's a great question. Here's how we address that. Repeat after me. That's a great question. Here's how we address that. This phrase shows appreciation for the question and smoothly transitions into your answer. For example, if someone asks about a potential risk in your project plan, you might respond, "That's a great question. Here's how we address that. We have implemented several risk mitigation strategies, including regular monitoring and contingency planning. This demonstrates your preparedness and knowledge." Phrase 2. I'm glad you asked. To elaborate. Repeat after me. I'm glad you asked. To elaborate. Use this phrase to provide more detailed information in response to a question. For example, if asked about the impact of your marketing strategy on sales, you could say, "I'm glad you asked. To elaborate, we anticipate a 15% increase in sales within the first quarter, supported by our target campaigns and promotional offers." This provides a thorough and confident answer. To finish off this section, remember these key points. Start your presentations with a strong, engaging introduction. Use clear transitions to guide your audience. Conclude with a memorable recap and handle Q&A sessions confidently. Effective presentations are a blend of clear communication, structured content, and audience engagement. Stay on the line for our next section on meetings, where we'll explore how to start meetings, express opinions, run them effectively, and manage project-related discussions. Now, in this third section, we're focusing on a fundamental aspect of business communication: meetings. We'll cover how to start meetings, express opinions, run them effectively, and manage project-related discussions. Let's get into it. Starting meetings. A strong start sets the tone for a productive meeting. Phrase 1. Let's get started, shall we? First on the agenda is. Repeat after me. Let's get started, shall we? First on the agenda is. This phrase is perfect for kicking off a meeting. It sets a clear direction and indicates that you are ready to begin. For example, if you're leading a team meeting to discuss project updates, you might start with, "Let's get started, shall we? First on the agenda is reviewing our current milestones. This immediately focuses everybody's attention on the tasks at hand. Phrase 2. Thank you all for joining. Today we need to discuss. Repeat after me. Thank you all for joining. Today we need to discuss. Use this phrase to show appreciation for your team's time and to outline the main topic of the meeting. For example, in a strategy meeting, you might say, "Thank you all for joining. Today we need to discuss our marketing plan for the next quarter." This helps set clear expectations right from the beginning. Expressing opinions. Sharing your thoughts clearly and assertively is crucial in meetings. Phrase 1. From my perspective, it seems that. Repeat after me. From my perspective, it seems that. This phrase is useful for politely introducing your opinion and ensuring it's heard. For example, during a discussion about project timelines, you might say, "From my perspective, it seems that we need more resources to meet the deadlines." This expresses your view while inviting further discussion. Phrase 2. I believe we should consider. Repeat after me. I believe we should consider. Use this phrase to suggest a new idea or course of action. For example, if the team is debating marketing strategies, you could say, "I believe we should consider increasing our social media budget to boost engagement." This clearly states your suggestion and its potential benefit. Running meetings. Keeping a meeting on track ensures efficiency and productivity. Phrase 1. Can we get some updates on? Repeat after me. Can we get some updates on? This phrase helps direct the conversation to specific topics and keeps the meeting focused. For example, in a project review meeting, you might ask, "Can we get some updates on the development phase?" This ensures that everyone is informed about the progress. Phrase 2. Let's move on to the next item. Repeat after me. Let's move on to the next item. Use this phrase to transition smoothly between agenda items and maintain momentum. For example, after discussing initial project findings, you could say, "Let's move on to the next item, which is our budget review." This keeps the meeting organized and on schedule. Project management specific. Effective project management discussions are essential for meeting deadlines and goals. Phrase 1. We must ensure that all tasks are completed by. Repeat after me. We must ensure all tasks are completed by. This phrase emphasizes the importance of deadlines and task completion. For example, in a project kickoff meeting, you might say, "We must ensure that all tasks are completed by the end of the month to stay on track." This sets clear expectations for your team. Phrase 2. We should prioritize these milestones for the next phase. Repeat after me. We should prioritize these milestones for the next phase. Use this phrase to highlight important goals and direct your team's focus. For example, during a project planning session, you could say, "We should prioritize these milestones for the next phase to ensure we meet our launch date." This helps align the team's efforts towards critical objectives. To nicely round off this section, remember these key points. Start meetings with clear, focused introductions. Express your opinions politely and assertively. Keep the meeting on track with focused questions and transitions, and manage project discussions by emphasizing deadlines and priorities. Effective meetings are about clear communication, structured agendas, and active participation. Stay tuned for our next section on modal verbs, where we'll explore how to use them professionally in various business contexts. Okay, in this fourth section, we're focusing on a crucial element of business English, modal verbs. We'll cover how to use them professionally to express necessity, possibility, and permission. Let's get started. Ground rules. First, let's establish some ground rules for using modal verbs effectively in business English. Modal verbs such as must, should, could, and might are used to express necessity, possibility, permission, and ability. They are essential for making your language precise and professional. Understanding the nuances of these verbs will help you communicate more clearly and assertively in various business contexts. Let's go through some key modal verbs with practical phrases you can use. Necessity. Phrase 1. We must complete this by Friday. Repeat after me. We must complete this by Friday. Use must to express a strong obligation or necessity. For example, in a project meeting, you might say, we must complete this by Friday to meet our client's deadline. This clearly indicates the urgency and importance of the task. Phrase 2. We should review the proposal before the meeting. Repeat after me. We should review the proposal before the meeting. Use should to give advice or a recommendation, indicating that something is important but not mandatory. For instance, you might say, we should review the proposal before the meeting to ensure we are all on the same page. This suggests that reviewing the proposal is a good idea to prepare adequately. Possibility. Phrase 1. We could see an increase in sales next quarter. Repeat after me. We could see an increase in sales next quarter. Use could to express a possibility or potential. For example, in a sales strategy meeting, you might say, we could see an increase in sales next quarter if we implement these new marketing tactics. This highlights a potential positive outcome without guaranteeing it. Phrase 2. You might want to consider a different approach. Repeat after me. You might want to consider a different approach. Use might to suggest a possibility or offer advice gently. In a brainstorming session, you might say, you might want to consider a different approach to solve this issue. This gently introduces an alternative without imposing it. Permission. Phrase 1. Could you provide the report by tomorrow? Repeat after me. Could you provide the report by tomorrow? Use could to politely request something. For instance, if you need a report from a colleague, you could say, could you provide the report by tomorrow? This is a polite way to make a request without being too demanding. Phrase 2. You may leave early today if you finish your tasks. Repeat after me. You may leave early today if you finished your tasks. Use may to give permission. For example, a manager might say, you may leave early today if you finish your tasks. This grants permission in a formal and polite manner. Advice. Here are some solid pieces of advice to help you use modal verbs effectively. 1. Practice different contexts. Use modal verbs in various contexts to understand their nuances. For example, practice making requests, giving advice, and discussing possibilities using different modal verbs. 2. Mind your tone and formality. The choice of modal verb can affect the tone and formality of your message. Must is stronger and more formal than should, while could and might are more polite and tentative. Scenario examples. Let's put these phrases into some practical scenarios. Scenario 1. You're in a team meeting discussing a project deadline. You could say, we must complete this by Friday to meet our client's deadline. This emphasizes the urgency and necessity of the task. Scenario 2. You're advising a colleague on preparing for a presentation. You might say, we should review the proposal before the meeting to ensure we are all on the same page. This provides a helpful recommendation. Scenario 3. During a strategic planning session, you want to discuss potential outcomes. You might say, we could see an increase in sales next quarter if we implement these new marketing tactics. This introduces a possibility for the team to consider. Scenario 4. You need a report from a colleague and want to be polite. You could say, could you provide the report by tomorrow? This is a respectful and polite request. Scenario 5. As a manager, you're granting permission for early leave. You might say, "You may leave early today if you finish your tasks." This gives permission in a professional manner. And so, to draw a line under this section, remember these key points. Use modal verbs to express necessity, possibility, and permission. Practice using them in different contexts, and be mindful of your tone and formality. Modal verbs are a powerful tool in professional communication, helping you convey your messages clearly and effectively. Stay tuned for our next section on conditionals, where we'll explore how to use them professionally in various business scenarios. We're now into our fifth section, where we're focusing on a particularly tricky aspect of business English: conditionals. We'll cover how to use different types of conditionals professionally to express real possibilities, hypothetical situations, and past hypotheticals. Let's rip into it. Ground rules. First, let's establish some ground rules for using conditionals effectively in business English. Conditionals are sentences with two clauses, an if clause and a main clause, that are used to discuss possibilities and their outcomes. There are different types of conditionals for different situations. First conditional for real possibilities, second conditional for hypothetical situations, and third conditional for past hypotheticals. Expressions. Let's go through some key conditional structures with practical phrases you can use. First conditional, real possibilities. Phrase 1. If we finish on time, we will meet our deadline. Repeat after me. If we finish on time, we will meet our deadline. Use the first conditional to talk about real or possible future events. For example, in a project meeting, you might say, "If we finish on time, we will meet our deadline." This indicates that completing the task on time will lead to a successful outcome. Phrase 2. If the client agrees, we can proceed with the plan. Repeat after me. If the client agrees, we can proceed with the plan. This phrase is useful for discussing decisions that depend on another party. For instance, during a planning session, you might say, "If the client agrees, we can proceed with the plan." This shows that your next steps depend on the client's approval. Second conditional, hypothetical situations. Phrase 1. If we had more resources, we could expand faster. Repeat after me. If we had more resources, we could expand faster. Use the second conditional to discuss hypothetical or unlikely situations. For example, in a strategic planning meeting, you might say, "If we had more resources, we could expand faster." This suggests a hypothetical scenario where additional resources would lead to quicker growth. Phrase 2. If I were in your position, I would consider a different approach. Repeat after me. If I were in your position, I would consider a different approach. This phrase is useful for giving advice based on a hypothetical situation. For example, when advising a colleague, you might say, "If I were in your position, I would consider a different approach." This provides a suggestion without imposing it directly. Third conditional, past hypotheticals. Phrase 1. If we had known about the issue, we would have addressed it sooner. Repeat after me. If we had known about the issue, we would have addressed it sooner. Use the third conditional to talk about past events that didn't happen and their hypothetical outcomes. For example, in a post-project review, you might say, "If we had known about the issue, we would have addressed it sooner." This reflects on a past situation and suggests what could have been done differently. Phrase 2. Had we prepared better, the presentation would have been more successful. Repeat after me. Had we prepared better, the presentation would have been more successful. This phrase is useful for reflecting on past actions and their outcomes. For example, after a presentation, you might say, "Had we prepared better, the presentation would have been more successful." This acknowledges that better preparation could have led to a better result. Advice. Here are some solid pieces of advice to help you use conditionals effectively. 1. Understand the different types. Practice using first, second, and third conditionals in various contexts to grasp their nuances, just like the modal verbs. For example, use the first conditional for real possibilities, the second for hypothetical situations, and the third for reflecting on past events. 2. Practice forming conditionals. Regularly create sentences using different conditionals to become more comfortable with their structure. This will help you use them naturally in conversations. Scenario examples. Let's put these phrases into some practical scenarios. Scenario 1. In a project meeting discussing deadlines, you might say, "If we finish on time, we will meet our deadline." This sets a clear goal for your team. Scenario 2. When planning a strategy that depends on client approval, you could say, "If the client agrees, we can proceed with the plan." This highlights the dependency on client decisions. Scenario 3. During a discussion about resource allocation, you might say, "If we had more resources, we could expand faster." This explores a hypothetical scenario for better resource management. Scenario 4. Advising a colleague, you could say, "If I were in your position, I would consider a different approach." This offers a hypothetical suggestion for better outcomes. Scenario 5. In a post-project review, you might reflect, "If we had known about the issue, we would have addressed it sooner." This helps identify past mistakes and learn from them. Scenario 6. After a presentation, you could say, "Had we prepared better, the presentation would have been more successful." This provides a constructive reflection on the past performance. To wrap up this section, remember these key points. Use the first conditional for real possibilities, the second conditional for hypothetical situations, and the third conditional for past hypotheticals. Understand their different uses and practice forming conditionals in various scenarios. Conditionals are a powerful tool in professional communication, helping you discuss possibilities and outcomes effectively. Stay tuned for our next section on handling awkward moments, where we'll explore how to navigate uncomfortable situations with professionalism and ease. Right, we're flying through this now. In this sixth section, we're focusing on a challenging but important aspect of business communication: handling awkward moments. We'll cover how to navigate uncomfortable situations with professionalism and ease. So, let's keep going. Introduction to handling awkward moments. Awkward moments can happen to anyone, especially in business settings where communication is key. Knowing how to handle these moments gracefully can maintain your professionalism and keep conversations on track. Let's explore some phrases and techniques to help you navigate these situations. Clarifying when you didn't understand. Phrase 1. "I'm sorry, could you clarify that for me?" Repeat after me. "I'm sorry, could you clarify that for me?" This phrase is perfect for situations where you didn't understand something. It's polite and shows that you're attentive and eager to get the details right. For example, during a meeting, if someone uses jargon or speaks too quickly, you might say, "I'm sorry, could you clarify that for me?" This prompts the speaker to explain further without feeling offended. Deflecting or redirecting a conversation. Phrase 2. "Let's circle back to that later." Repeat after me. "Let's circle back to that later." This phrase is useful for redirecting the conversation when a topic isn't appropriate at the moment or requires more time than available. For instance, if a colleague brings up a complex issue right before the end of a meeting, you could say, "Let's circle back to that later." This acknowledges the importance of the topic while suggesting a more suitable time to discuss it. Using humour to diffuse tension. Sometimes a light-hearted comment can ease tension and make the situation more comfortable. Phrase 3. Well, that's one way to break the ice. Repeat after me. Well, that's one way to break the ice. Use this phrase with a smile to diffuse minor awkward moments, like when someone accidentally interrupts or makes a small mistake. For example, if someone trips over their words during an introduction, you might say, "Well, that's one way to break the ice." This lightens the mood and helps everyone relax. Acknowledging and moving on. Phrase 4. Let's move forward and focus on. Repeat after me. Let's move forward and focus on. This phrase helps acknowledge an awkward moment without dwelling on it, allowing the conversation to progress smoothly. For example, if there's an uncomfortable silence after a difficult question, you might say, "Let's move forward and focus on our next steps." This shifts the attention back to the productive discussion. Advice for handling awkward moments. Here are some more pieces of advice to help you handle awkward moments effectively. 1. Stay calm and composed. Your reaction can set the tone for how others perceive the situation. Staying calm helps keep the atmosphere professional. 2. Use positive language. Frame your responses in a positive light to maintain a constructive environment. 3. Acknowledge the awkwardness. Sometimes simply acknowledging the awkward moments can diffuse the tension. It shows that you're aware and, of course, in control. Scenario examples. Let's put these phrases into some practical scenarios. Scenario 1. In a meeting, if a colleague uses unfamiliar terminology, you might say, "I'm sorry, could you clarify that for me?" This ensures you understand and keeps the conversation clear. Scenario 2. If a sensitive topic is brought up at an inappropriate time, you could say, "Let's circle back to that later." This maintains focus and addresses the issue at a better time. Scenario 3. When someone makes a small mistake or there's an awkward pause, using humour like, "Well, that's one way to break the ice," can help everyone relax and move on. Scenario 4. After an uncomfortable question or comment, you might say, "Let's move forward and focus on our next steps." This redirects the conversation to a productive path. To bring this section to a close, remember these key points. Use clarifying questions to ensure understanding. Redirect conversations when necessary. Use humour to ease tension, and acknowledge awkward moments to move past them smoothly. Handling awkward moments with grace can maintain your professionalism and keep interactions positive. Stay tuned for our final section on persuasion and influence, where we'll explore how to effectively persuade and influence others in a business context. Okay, in this seventh and final section, we're focusing on a powerful aspect of business communication: persuasion and influence. We'll cover how to effectively persuade and influence others in a business context. So, let's take a look. Introduction to persuasion and influence. Persuasion and influence are essential skills for any business professional. Whether you're pitching an idea, negotiating a deal, or leading a team, the ability to persuade and influence others can significantly impact your success. Let's explore some phrases and techniques to help you master these skills. Phrases and techniques. Using data and evidence. Phrase 1. Based on the data, I strongly recommend. Repeat after me. Based on the data, I strongly recommend. This phrase is powerful because it grounds your recommendation in concrete evidence, making it more convincing. For example, in a meeting to decide on a marketing strategy, you might say, "Based on the data, I strongly recommend increasing our social media budget to target younger demographics." This shows that your suggestion is backed by solid information. Appealing to interests and concerns. Phrase 2. You'll find that this approach benefits us by. Repeat after me. You'll find that this approach benefits us by. Use this phrase to highlight the advantages of your proposal, tailored to your audience's interests and concerns. For instance, when presenting a new project plan to stakeholders, you could say, "You'll find that this approach benefits us by reducing costs and improving efficiency." This directly addresses what your audience cares about. Building consensus. Phrase 3. Can we all agree that... Repeat after me. Can we all agree that... This phrase helps building consensus by inviting agreement and fostering a sense of collaboration. For example, in a team meeting discussing project priorities, you might say, "Can we all agree that meeting the deadline is our top priority?" This encourages everyone to align on a common goal. Framing choices positively. Phrase 4. The best option would be to... Repeat after me. The best option would be to... Use this phrase to frame your preferred choice positively, guiding your audience towards your recommendation. For instance, if you're proposing a new software solution, you could say, "The best option would be to adopt this new software as it will streamline our workflow and increase productivity." This presents your suggestion as the optimal choice. Advice for persuasion and influence. Here are some great pieces of advice to help you persuade and influence effectively. 1. Understand your audience. Tailor your message to the interests, concerns, and needs of your audience. This makes your arguments more relevant and compelling. 2. Use clear and confident language. Speak clearly and confidently to convey authority and conviction. Avoid vague language that can weaken your message. 3. Back up your claims with evidence. Use data, examples, and testimonials to support your arguments. This adds credibility and makes your case stronger. Scenario examples. Let's put these phrases into some practical scenarios. Scenario 1. In a strategy meeting, you might say, "Based on the data, I strongly recommend increasing our social media budget to target younger demographics." This makes a compelling case for your proposal using evidence. Scenario 2. When presenting to stakeholders, you could say, "You'll find that this approach benefits us by reducing costs and improving efficiency." This addresses their primary concerns directly. Scenario 3. During a team discussion, you might say, "Can we all agree that meeting the deadline is our top priority?" This helps build consensus and align the team on a common goal. Scenario 4. Proposing a new solution, you might say, "The best option would be to adopt this new software as it will streamline our workflow and increase productivity." This frames your recommendation positively and clearly. And so, to nicely close out this section, remember these key points. Use data and evidence to support your arguments. Appeal to your audience's interests and concerns. Build consensus by inviting agreement. And frame your choices positively. Persuasion and influence are about understanding your audience and communicating your ideas effectively and confidently. Now, before we bring this episode into heel, we would like to ask that if we have provided you with even a little bit of value from our last 100 episodes, please leave a review and tell your nearest and dearest. It helps us grow and reach more people just like you. If you don't normally do things like this, then make this the episode to drop a like into the comments. We truly appreciate all the support that you give. And so, as we come to the end of this special 100th episode of the Business English Podcast, we want to take a moment to reflect on the incredible journey we've been on together over the last 99 episodes. This journey has taken you from the basics to advanced levels of business English, unlocking doors to new opportunities, enhancing your professional confidence, and enabling you to communicate with clarity and authority. You've tackled real-world scenarios, practiced vital phrases, and learned how to handle every aspect of business communication with finesse. And this is just the beginning. As we look ahead to the next 100 episodes, imagine where your continued dedication and practice will take you. Picture the new heights you'll reach, the doors that will open, and the professional relationships you'll build. We're committed to bringing you even more valuable content, practical advice, and engaging lessons to support your ongoing growth. Thank you for being a part of this journey. Your commitment to improving your business English skills is truly inspiring, and we're honoured to be a part of your professional development. So, stay tuned, stay motivated, and here's to the next 100 episodes. You have been listening to the Business English Podcast. Remember to subscribe, leave a review, and we'll see you next time.